Today we're doing a Mimeoplasm tune-up.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. There are names on screen right now for our patrons, and you can be one of them by going to patreon.com and supporting the channel.
Yes, if you would like to support us indirectly, you can use Dragon Shield. We have links in the description. Buy the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
Been using them on our decks for 10 plus years, and I wouldn't recommend any other sleeve to you. Use our affiliate links to get these sleeves.
I also wouldn't recommend any other sponsor for this channel besides Maxfield.com. There's going to be an ad in the middle of the video, maybe at the beginning of the video, maybe at the end of the video. You don't know, but you should guess what time code the ad's going to be in so that we can tell you that you're wrong.
Yes, there is definitely one somewhere in this video, and you won't be able to guess it. And happy birthday to everybody whose birthday is today. Today, we're doing a Commander tune-up. Now, Commander tune-ups aren't every day on this channel, so we got to explain, what is a Commander tune-up, Easy?
We're taking patron-submitted decks, in this case, Jim's nephew Nate's deck, theoretical Mimeoplasm deck, and we're going to upgrade it under their restrictions.
Yes, and their restrictions are no reserve list, no fast mana. There were some specific cards we couldn't cut, like Teferi and what was the other one? Consecrated Sphinx. Those are the two that come off the top of my head. We weren't going to cut those anyway. The cards that were suggested not to cut were already some amazing Magic cards.
Yeah, I think no reserve list, no fast mana. That's how I want to live my life.
Yes, that makes deck building much more fun. First thing we got to do before we start upgrading the deck is read the Mimeoplasm so we know what this deck is trying to do.
The Mimeoplasm is 2 black, green, blue for a 0/0 legendary ooze. As it enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 creature cards from graveyards. If you do, it enters the battlefield as a copy of one of those cards with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to the power of the other card. So this has the potential to just be huge, and I want to see how big we can actually make it.
Yeah, the Mimeoplasm is just obviously a graveyard-centric deck. We're going to fill our graveyard mostly with big creatures, because we're going to have creatures that work really well with this deck, and we're going to make the Mimeoplasm a copy, and we're going to have creatures that put lots of counters on it, so we can potentially just one-shot with this commander. So first thing we like to do for everybody at home who didn't know what this deck looked like beforehand, we're going to give you the best cards in the deck, so you can see what we were working with, and one of the best, not even close, was Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon. All we have to do is make it a Skithiryx. You make it a copy, 6 counters from any number of creatures in the deck. There's a ton that put 6 counters on. And then you just swing. Because guess what? You pay a black to give it haste. So you can just get in right away. That's a one-shot kill. Because Skithiryx has Infect.
Yeah, 10 Infect is going to kill anybody. And you don't need to worry about commander damage. Just so happens to be your commander. This is about as... It's like it has infinite power, because it's just going to kill somebody. I love it. I also, if you want to make a gigantic Mimeoplasm from cards already in the deck, Consuming Aberration is a star. Those stars are tracked across all zones, so in the graveyard, it's still equal to the number of cards in opponent's graveyards, power and toughness, so Mimeoplasm is going to be absolutely huge. You don't even need... What's crazy also is you could also just make Mimeoplasm a Consuming Aberration, and then it'll be that big still, and then whatever other creature gives that many counters. Same with Lord of Extinction for cards in all graveyards, just ginormous.
Yeah, both these cards absolutely are going to put a ton of counters. You probably don't want to make it a copy of this. You can, and it'll be huge, but you want to use these for counters because you want to make some evasive threat that is trample, flying, and get through somehow, and then throw all these counters on it so you can just absolutely one-shot.
Aberration and Extinction are going to give you 21 commander damage easily.
Easily. I mean, as long as you've played the game, which... you're going to play the game.
That's weird if you haven't. If you just jump right in on turn 6 having not played the game, actually Consuming Aberration, they'll still be big.
They'll still be pretty big. Buried Alive, another one of the best cards in the whole deck. 3 mana, put any 3 creatures from your deck into your graveyard. Obviously, this is going to be amazing. We'll put whatever the best thing to make right now, probably is Skithiryx, because it's going to be great in a lot of situations. Put whatever makes the most counters right now. We have lots of cards. Even if there's no other cards in graveyard, we can put Titannoth Rex into our graveyard, which was already in this deck, and just get 11 counters.
Yeah, and then lastly, Toxrill the Corrosive. If we're just going to straight up reanimate it, this deck has reanimation cards, and Mimeoplasm is basically a reanimation type spell. Toxrill is one of the best 7-mana spells in the format, period.
Yeah, this deck is filled to the brim. I think Toxrill is the very best one to reanimate / make the Mimeoplasm. But there's a bunch of them. I mean, there's Consecrated Sphinx, there's this, I can't even think of them.
There's Mike and Trike is in this deck for a nice little infinite action.
Both of them are incredibly strong. So there's just a million awesome cards to do. Toxrill happening to be the best. So now it's time to get to the upgrades. We're going to take some cards and we're going to replace them one for one. So we'll tell you what we cut and we'll tell you what we put in. First thing we upgraded, Ramp. Now, classic trap here for green decks. When you are a green creature-based deck, you don't want the spell-based ramp. you want to go all creatures because every single creature is that much more synergistic with your deck. There's going to be times when maybe you only have 1 or 2 creatures in your graveyard, and you'll be happy that it was, let's say, this upgraded Elvish Mystic, which we added instead of a Farsi. Sure, I can only put 1 counter, but it's that much better. It's like 10 times better for all the little synergies in this deck.
Yeah, we have a lot of cards that care about the number of creatures in graveyards. We have a lot of things that care about when you cast creatures, the number of creatures you have. Just playing creatures, sacrificing creatures. First, you can't do any of that. It's flatline power level. Elvish Mystic ramps you faster and just has a lot more potential. So yeah, we're also, this is the only time you're ever going to see us cut Nature's Lore from a green deck, put Findhorn Elves instead, and we also got 3 visits for Llanowar Elves, the trifecta of mana dorks.
Yeah, we had the trifecta, the 1 mana green mana dorks that produce a green, and we cut all the 2 mana ramp that gets you a land into play. These are good cards, don't get us wrong. We're not saying Farseek, Nature's Lore, and 3 visits don't have plenty of homes in Commander. They obviously do. We want creature-based ramp. We want to maximize our creature count in this deck.
Yeah, because it already had Birds of Paradise and Deathrite Shaman, so we're like, well, let's get, and Elves of Deep Shadow, so like, let's double it. Let's get twice as many 1-2 dorks.
Exactly. I like this next ad. We cut Migration Path, which I'm not even high on. I'm pretty low on that card. It's probably, I think it's a budget card, and that's about it for me. We added in Skull Prophet, which is a 2 mana dork. It's, on par average at best, but you could just add in, it taps to mill 2 cards when you're not, any turn that you're not using it for mana, it is milling you.
It always has utility. It's always going to do something. It's also randomly a 3/1, which I guess is nice. We cut Harrow for Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. Selvala is kind of just busted. It's one of the better green cards in the whole format. And when Mimeoplasm, the whole point of this deck is to make it as big as humanly possible, she's going to add that much mana. More mana than is humanly possible.
I mean, Selvala is really, really good. The card's incredible. And we already have a commander that wants big power. So that was simple. Moving on, we're going to, this is like interaction/removal section. We cut Chain Devil. Fine card. There's like 5 better versions of it. We really don't need to go to Chain Devil. We can play, and it already had Playcrafter, which we left in. And there's a million 3 mana versions of this card. So no thank you on Chain Devil. Added in Ravenous Chupacabra. This is going to be great. Sometimes we're just going to need removal for our Mimeoplasm to be, and we'll have the Chup, we'll remove something, and then it'll die. And then sometimes, well, our Mimeoplasm can be removable when we need to. We can reanimate it with some of our reanimation spells.
If we just have Animate Dead sitting in our hand and we need removal, great. I'll get a Chupacabra back. It's not the best scenario in the world, but I don't need to win the game. I need to not lose the game. That's what Chupacabra's here for. If Doomblade was in this deck, it's not helping us.
And you're noticing that was like the first creature we cut, but the creature count is going up very fast here. We're already up 5 total, and we're about to do it again because we removed Damnation. We have Toxic Deluge in deck. Yes, we want a board wipe, maybe 2 in the deck, but Damnation, I think we don't need it.
We're the person who's going to need, we're the deck demanding a board wipe.
We're the deck demanding to be Damnation. We added in its place Glenelendra Archmage, which is really interesting with our commander because we can make it a flyer. It's only a 2/2, but we can put any number of counters on it. Now it's an evasive, big threat, with the ability persist, meaning when it dies and comes back, you get to choose 2 new creatures to make some new Mimeoplasm monstrosity.
Yeah, so if they were gonna cast Damnation, it's really weird, but I'm gonna go, okay, counter it with my Mimeoplasm, who then dies and is now back as a bigger threat.
Yep, exactly. And you can save the rest of your board, or even just let it resolve, and then it persists back anyway. You don't even need to counter necessarily. You're just going to have your biggest threat right back. This also has combos in the deck. Machias and this card make it so you can infinitely sacrifice it for a blue mana to counter any non-creature spells. You're going to lock people out of non-creature spells that way.
Oh, that's basically unbeatable.
And the next card we added here is actually a website, and it's Maxfield.com, the best deck building website you've ever seen. And we do all of our Commander tune-ups through this website. Seriously, it's so easy. People send in decks if it's not on Maxfield, which is blasphemous. We put it directly on the Maxfield. It is so easy. Click the card, like literally click the little corner, click remove. That's how we get rid of cards from the deck. It literally takes 1 second to get rid of each card. Like you just float over a card, boop, boop,
well, they even give you shorthand. You can just press keys to remove the card.
Yes, if you know how to do it, if you know the shorthand, because Maxfield has lots of shorthand ways to do it, you can just remove it with 2 button clicks. 2.
It's so much faster. Like you said, the first thing we do when you submit a deck list is make sure it ends up on Maxfield.com, because we can see the average mana value, how many lands per hand, organize everything into whatever we want. Types, mana value, check to see all the stats in the deck, and it's just the fastest, most efficient way to build a deck, I'd say.
Yeah, it is where we get all of our stats. At the end of this video, we're going to do a rundown of the average mana value. Guess where we got that from? Maxfield.com, baby.
We're also going to trim some of the spell removal that is good, but doesn't work with our hyper creature deck. This first one is Reality Shift. It exiles something and they manifest top card, but we're just going to put in Foundation Breaker as a sort of like a 2-mana sorcery speed thing, but it puts a creature in the graveyard. It's got plenty of synergy.
I'm a big fan of Foundation Breaker. I think it's just a solid, strong card for any deck that wants to put a creature into the graveyard. I'm in for Foundation Breaker for sure. Removed Arcane Denial, fine counterspell, totally reasonable. Again, upgrading that creature count. We got Urtai Resurrected.
Still a counterspell.
It's a counterspell that can counter any spell, or it can kill a creature on the board already. Their controller draw, but we don't care about that. We're going for the tempo advantage with this card.
Basically the creature version of Arcane Denial.
Yeah, it really is. It's a good. It's a super solid card, and we care about the body. That's what's important here.
Yeah, Pernicious Deed's going to go. It's an enchantment. This card is so fine. I feel like it used to be a lot better, but now there's so many options. We're going to put Yawgmoth Thran Physician instead. This has just a ton of random things going on. We can sacrifice any dead creatures. These mana dorks that we're adding, they're not going to be dead late game because of cards like this. We just cash them in for a card, put creatures in our graveyard, kill utility creatures on the opposing side, and there is a world where we might be paying black to discard a card and proliferate Mimeoplasm.
Yeah, this is right on the cusp of like we're kind of changing here because Yawgmoth is two things. It's interaction and it's a ton of card draw. So we're kind of moving into card draw now because, well, we need some card draw. This deck was a little lacking for sure, but one thing this deck does, ridiculous, is it doesn't draw 1, 2, 3 cards. Sometimes it does. We do have cards like that. But we draw 7, 8, 9, 10 plus.
It's like one card multiple times or 50.
Yeah, we draw 50 cards a lot. So we cut Soul-Tide Charm. I don't even think that's a very good commander card.
I would basically never play it.
Almost never. It's very low on my list of like things. Maybe on a super duper tight budget.
Nope.
Or
I don't think so.
Cards I have, maybe.
Cards I have. I can't argue with that.
Yeah. We added in Champion of Wits. Now this card is super awesome in this deck. It's going to come in. It's going to draw us 2, discard 2 that puts creatures in our graveyard. And then once it's in our graveyard, we make the Mimeoplasm this. It enters as a 2/1 with 7 counters. All right, we will now draw 9 cards, discard 2, which is what I was talking about, this large influx of card draw.
Yeah, in the early game, if you have one of your big chonkers that is not very good in play, like Lord of Extinction, pitch it to the graveyard. It's right where you want it. And then if this is in the graveyard, well, I would love to copy it.
Next, we cut Factor Fiction. Solid card. Again, does fill the graveyard, does draw cards well, but we can just get creatures in these slots. So we added in Jingatax's Core Augur. It's another thing for Mimeoplasm. We're probably never casting this. Well, we'll cast it once in a blue moon.
If we have Selvala, we will.
If we have Selvala, we'll cast it. We're just going to play the Mimeoplasm, make it a Jingataxis, and make it so if you don't answer this by the time it goes around the table, I probably win.
Yeah, this deck is not really pulling punches. Nate knows how they want to play, and they're going to bash people's skulls in, and I think Jingataxis works pretty well. Sorry, it's turn 5. You're going to have to discard your hand if you don't kill this thing.
Yeah, it's a silly good card. It's so... Nobody wants to play against Jingataxis. It's a groaner.
You want to play against it for very long.
It's just true. You're going to end up losing. Next, we cut Frantic Search, another really good card for filling our graveyard if we care about spells. That's not our style. We want creatures. Ledger Shredder, super solid. Whenever a player casts their second spell, no matter who it is during the turn, connive. Meaning you draw, discard. If it's a non-land, which we want to do all the time, it gets a counter. This is going to be an awesome one to just make the Mimeoplasm a nice flyer that will get bigger and throw a ton of counters on it.
Yeah, this is going to put everything we want in our graveyard continuously throughout the whole game. Ledger Shredder's been super good when we played it. I mean, everybody kind of said it was good, but now that we're playing it, we're like, yep, we agree. It is almost like never quite the thing you want to kill, and it's just going to connive all the time.
Yeah, it's a lot better than I thought it was. It's a card that I guess this would be maybe on our cards we got wrong because it was definitely a card we were low on than most people.
Like we wanted to test it.
I think the hype was right on this one. Sometimes the hype is wrong, and we try not to buy into hype. But Ledger Shredder, the hype is right.
Yeah, we'll let you know when the hype is wrong. We always do. Windfall, not a huge fan of symmetrical card draw. There wasn't really a way to even take advantage of this. It was kind of just like, hey, everybody gets some cards, and we get to put some cards in our graveyard. But what about like Prime Speaker Zagana? I would like Mimeoplasm to enter as that, because then when we put all these counters on it, not only does it give itself counters equal to the biggest thing we have, but then it gets more counters from being the Mimeoplasm, and then we're just going to draw like 30,000 cards.
Yeah, we have another version of this card coming up too, where it's just like, put 1,000,000 counters in this, draw 1,000,000 cards. It's super strong. It's super silly. Going back to, you mentioned Windfall, we cut things that milled our opponents. Other than one card, we left one card that mills our opponents. Milling our opponents tends to be good for them, and yeah, we can take their creatures, but we built our deck so that we could get our creatures. Our creatures are going to be better than our opponents. Sure, sometimes our opponent will have a big dummy in the graveyard, and we'll use it when it's there. I don't want to mill them. I don't want to give them advantage in their graveyard.
I'm happy to just let that happen when it happens.
Naturally.
I'm not going to mill them.
So we're still here in card draw for ads, but we are removing some reanimation. We had too many non-creature reanimation ways. There's still a bunch in the deck, but I cut a couple. Necromancy out. Just another way to reanimate. It's a 3-mana animate dead. Added in Fathom Mage. This is what I was referencing before.
Dirty.
It's the same exact thing as Prime Speaker Zagana. It enters with that many counters and you draw that many cards.
If it's the Mimeoplasm. But if it's just Fathom Mage, and whenever it gets counters, you draw.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That is very true. And it's not going to evolve when it's the Mimeoplasm.
No, because it's going to probably be the biggest thing. And I'll take the 15 cards just up front. I think if you just play it out, maybe on like turn 3 or something, it's probably all right. It'll evolve like 3-4 times. Certainly it'll evolve every time you play the Mimeoplasm as something else.
Yeah, exactly. It curves into the Mimeoplasm in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I know Amber wanted to come in because she loves Fathom Mage.
Yeah, and we cut Persist. Fine card. Doesn't reanimate Legends. We have a lot of great Legends we want to reanimate. I'm not a big fan of Persist off of a budget. It's kind of a budgety card. Nezahal, Primal Tide in, more card draw. Another great thing to just make the Mimeoplasm. Cool thing about this one, the Mimeoplasm can be a Nezahal. It'll draw some cards, and then when they try and kill it or wipe the board, exile it, make it come back as some brand new big threat, especially if there's a board wipe. If it's a board wipe, they'll wipe all the creatures off the board. Then you'll be like, all right, what good things went to the graveyard? I'll make the Mimeoplasm that now.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. Or, even we can do that proactively. Like, all right, I'll cast Toxic Deluge. Let's, for some reason, it would kill Nezahal or whatever board wipe. It's like, proactively, save it. Now it's back as like something with haste, and I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. It lets us just reset our Nezahal whenever we want to.
Yeah, pretty sweet. Also, funny that we paired up Persist with Nezahal, because that is the illegal play I made to try to reanimate.
Yep.
On Shuffle Scuffle.
Yeah, you did do that play. We did allow it, and it was very illegal. We also cut Swiftfoot Boots. We added in a lot more creatures with haste so that the Mimeoplasm will just have haste naturally when we copy any number of those creatures. So Swiftfoot Boots, not as necessary. Left in Lightning Greaves, still good card.
0 equip is tough to beat.
And when we added in Skull Clamp, more card draw, super awesome. I mean, Skull Clamp's amazing. Creatures are going to be dying on their side all the time. If you're playing a high number of mana dorks, Skull Clamp can almost always just go in your deck.
Another reason we're not scared of board wipes, we're not scared of this stuff. They just synergize better. My mana dork ramp that ramped me on turn 1, 2, and 3, and 4 is now Divination. Now we're going to be cutting some of the other like reanimation / Mimeoplasm targets. They weren't quite big enough for our taste. We went way bigger, so we're going to cut Brainstealer Dragon. This isn't really the deck for it. I don't want to hardcast it. I don't really want to reanimate it, and I don't want Mimeoplasm to be it, so we're going to play Eternal Witness instead. Bread and butter card.
Yeah, bread and butter. Creature card that doesn't affect that we want in our deck. Pretty simple. And you already saw a lot of the big stuff we added. Like, you're not seeing the big stuff for big stuff here. You're seeing kind of more miscellaneous stuff. Another big thing we cut, Deluvian Primordial. Solid card. This deck is just better than that.
Also, the Primordials, this and the black one, they work with the theme that we cut of milling our opponents.
Yeah, that's very, very true. We're not milling our opponents. So, Deluvian Primordial out, Master Biomancer in, which is so cute with the Mimeoplasm.
It's silly.
It is very silly. You make the Mimeoplasm this, you put, let's just say, let's be conservative. We got 5 counters, There's a lower.
So it's a 7/9.
It's a 7/9. Every creature enters the battlefield now with 7 counters. That's every stupid mana dork. They're 8/8s. Those are beaters. Everything is a threat now from now on in the game.
Yeah, it's not just kill Mimeoplasm. It's kill Mimeoplasm and anything I played after it before you answered the Mimeoplasm.
Demands a board wipe.
Super sweet. We also cut Sepulchral Primordial. Obviously, you knew that was coming. And we added Dothy Voidwalker, which is interesting. It nukes our opponent's graveyards. They don't even get to put anything cool in there. And I think that hurting them is going to be more useful than just having access to their graveyard. I'd rather just hose their graveyard, use my proactive stuff, and if we're going to Mimeoplasm it, which is an option, not the best option, but it has shadow, so it can't be blocked.
Next, we cut Unmarked Grave, just another way to put some stuff in our graveyard, but it doesn't get legendaries, and we just have better ways to do that. In its place, Yeheni Undying Partisan. This lets us sack creatures off of our board in order to put them in the graveyard for the Mimeoplasm if there's a case where that is needed. It also is a good thing for the Mimeoplasm to become, because if we have any other creature on the board, it's going to be a lot harder to remove. Also has haste, can get in right away.
Oh, surprise. Here's 20 counters on a 2/2, so now it's lethal. It's got haste and it's got indestructible because they got these mana dorks lying around. You're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, it's a super strong card in this deck. Also removed Gerard's Orders. Not a big fan of this card overall. It's kind of just whatever. It's okay.
We don't like these slow effects that are like Diabolic Tutor plus a little extra, plus an Entomb.
Yeah, exactly. It's Entomb, Diabolic Tutor.
We have literal Entomb in this deck.
Yeah, this deck has Entomb. We had in this place Putrefax, which is a 5/3 haste trample. It's a ball lightning type effect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try and just one-shot somebody.
But you forgot the best part.
What about it?
Infect.
It does. That actually is
That's
very...
like the only part. It infects.
Yeah,
we only need 10 damage to get through.
We would not play, Groundbreaker?
Yeah, we wouldn't know.
We wouldn't play that in the deck, but the fact that this has Infect means that if we ever untap and someone's defense is down, or even has a defense, if we have enough counters to put on, dead. Yeah. Absolutely dead.
Like a 30-28 Putrefax, you're dead. It doesn't really matter what you have, you're done. And we just sacrifice it at the end step. Who cares? We'll just play Mimeoplasm again next turn.
Yeah, exactly. This is really good for knocking out if there's one single problematic person at the table who's keeping you down, countering all your stuff. All right, get them.
Caught them with the shields down, and now they're out of the game, and they can play in the next one.
Yes. Also caught Mythos of Brocos. This is going to be 4 mana. Return 2 permanents from our graveyard to our hand. Not super interested in this card. It's totally whatever.
It's too slow for this deck.
This
deck is aggressive.
This deck is good, and we just don't. This card is a non-creature again. In its place, Nether Trader. One, it has Shadow. It has Haste, meaning it's going to be one of the threats that we can just Mimeoplasm, make it this, put 17 counters on it, get in right away for commander damage. Super strong. We're also milling our self slot, so if this ends up in the graveyard, it's kind of like drawing a card. If any of our creatures die, pay a black, put it on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's super good with like Yawgmoth. It's going to turn all of our death triggers into double death triggers, and we just go off just because of Nether Trader. So let's go to Dreamboard Muse we cut. We don't like giving out mill for free. Unless I'm a mill deck, I'm probably never going to be milling my opponents unless it's with like Ashiok Dream Render or something, because I don't want to give them free extra resources. I don't need to ensure that there's good cards in their graveyard. We built this deck and edited this deck so that there's always good cards in our graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to use their graveyard. The point is we're going to use our graveyard almost every time. In its place, Urborg Lurgoyf, which is super, super awesome in this deck. It is a star, power is equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard, but you can kick it for black and or blue, and if you do that, you mill 3 for each time it was kicked.
It's like the perfectly designed card randomly for this deck from Dominaria United. Sultai, it mills 6, it's cheap to cast, it's got stars in the power so we can make it a giant Mimeoplasm by taking all the counters. What doesn't this do?
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the cards in the deck that is like, play more creatures. Get that 45 creatures, which we do in this deck, because Urborg Lurgoyf is going to be way bigger in that case. Next, we had to fix the lands. Now, let me be very clear. The mana base was functional and even super good without us fixing it, but we made it that much better. Cut Tainted Tile. I'm not a big fan of these in 3-color decks. 2-color decks all day. Not a big fan outside of that. In its place, we added in Field of the Dead. Well, it's a Field of the Dead deck now, so we're going to obviously upgrade the mana base to be perfect with Field of the Dead.
It was already basically perfect, and we barely changed anything. It's just going to be free zombies all the time. Every time you hit 7 mana, 7 lands. I love this card. It's so hard for me not to play this card when it's just a tap land. This deck has very few other tap lands in it.
And it has perfect mana fixing, so it's like our only colorless land.
Yeah, exactly. We got Tainted Wood also for nurturing P-land. Now we have the same type of fixing, except we don't need a swamp. We're taking some damage, but we don't care because this deck is so aggressive anyway. And in the late game, or when we need a card desperately, we just cash this in for a card.
Yep. Same thing is true for Waterlogged Grove, which was also added. What we took off for that was Forbidden Orchard. We're just not sure about this card outside of exactly decks with super high synergy with it, and this is not one of them.
Yeah, we don't want to give away potential chump blockers for Mimeoplasm.
Nope. Not unless we have some sort of way to work with that. This deck absolutely 100% does. Not fetid pools out. We don't need this tapped fetch source. No, our deck is way better. Our mana base is way better.
We gotta Triome.
We gotta Triome. If we need something to fetch tapped, Triome every single time. In its place, Mana Confluence. It already had City of Brass. Might as well add Mana Confluence as well.
Totally. We're not going to be worried about taking some of this incremental damage. We're trying to end the game, at least for one player, on turn 6 or 7. And if we mentioned Field of the Dead and playing 3 colors, well, there were 6 basics in the deck, and we went ahead and cut 3 of them, Swamp, Island, Forest, for Snow-Covered Swamp, Island, Forest. So now every single land in the deck has a different name, and you can never miss with Field of the Dead.
Yeah, if you don't know the trick, Field of the Dead cares about names. So obviously, Snow-Covered Forest, which functionally the same as Forest in almost every situation. Well, in this situation, guess what? They're not because of Field of Dead.
They just have a different name. The budget for the deck overall, some stats, was nothing. We had no budget as long as we stayed away from fast mana and the reserve list, which we did. And the total we spent on the ads was $191.
Damn, we're good.
Never disappoint. Original average mana value of the deck sent to us was 3.57, and the new average mana value of the deck that when we upgraded it, 3.34. All your spells are going to be cheaper on average, and we still kept all the big chunkers in.
Yeah, this deck needs big chunkers, obviously. We want to mill those things into our graveyard. They cost 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 mana. We want those things in our graveyard. So this deck overcosted in a lot of ways, still kept it down to 3.34. If you can get this below 3, I would be shocked.
Yeah, there's 31 changes overall, which is one higher than we normally do. And I will say, if you're a big fan of Sultai commander tune-ups of very popular commanders, you can get your Sultai fix by checking out how we upgraded this Muldrotha deck in our tune-up.
Peace out, Tribe Scouts.